Good morning, everyone. Uh, we welcome you all today for our fourth session for enablers in related to Global Entrepreneurship Week, Sri Lanka 2022. So, from Bug Zero side, we welcome you all to this session. And for today's session, I will be start by discussing what is bug bounty and what is Bug Zero, and how Bug Zero can help your organizations to become better delivers of software and how to make your organization software more secure. So without further ado, let's start. So before moving to the session, let me give you a brief introduction about what I'm going to discuss today. So first, I will discuss what is Bug Zero and the bug bounty ecosystem. Then I will discuss about how Bug Zero can help you to achieve your security goals in your organization, and how Bug Zero can help to deliver good software and more secure software and make this bug bounty ecosystem work for yourself. So let's start. So we are very proud to be the corporate sponsor of Global Entrepreneurship Week 2022, collaborating with ICTA. So if I give us some kind of a brief introduction about what is Bug Zero is the largest bug bounty platform in Sri Lanka. So basically what we are doing is we are connecting hackers and organizations who want to test their software and deliver better software. So there are two kinds of people we are connecting: the people who want to test software to try and use some kind of vulnerability discovery methods to find vulnerabilities in the software. And then there are another kind of people who are the organization users who have software and APIs, systems, and source code that needs to be tested and to find vulnerabilities. So what they are going to do is they are going to list their software and APIs and their systems for testing, and the hackers will continuously test these for vulnerabilities and report these vulnerabilities to these organizations. So basically, Bug Zero is doing some kind of an intermediary, and they are connecting each other via our platform Bug Zero. So we are basically a marketplace who connects hackers and organizations. So when I'm discussing about the concept of Bug Zero, or the basic concept behind Bug Zero is the bug bounty ecosystem. So in bug bounty ecosystem, the basic idea is that you do not have some kind of dedicated software tester or dedicated security testers in your organization. So you allow others, like crowdsourcing or the wisdom of the crowd, to utilize as the security testing for your organization. So what, from the organization's point of view, what we are doing is we are going to ask the crowd, the people who are testing, who security testers all around the world, to test your software or your API endpoints and your other assets for vulnerabilities for some kind of a reward or a bounty. So in a later session, we will discuss in further details how this ecosystem can work for you, how you can utilize bug bounty cycle and bug bounty ecosystem for your own organization's values, and how to enhance your organization's security posture using our Bug Zero and by utilizing the bug bounty cycle. So that's the basic idea behind Bug Zero and bug bounty cycle. So next, I will be going and some kind of an in-depth demonstration of how Bug Zero can utilize this bug bounty cycle, and how we are going to do this end-to-end integration of bug bounty cycle into this Bug Zero platform. So first, I'm going to show you how to register in Bug Zero as organization user. So, and then I will show you setting up a bug bounty program in our platform, and I will discuss in depth about what is the program policy. And then I will show you how we can fine tune the program scope to get more reports. And then the most important part is when you are publishing a bug bounty program, you will definitely get hundreds of reports from the hackers. So it is very vital and important to handling these vulnerable reports properly. And finally, I will be discussing how to keep receiving reports, because from the experience from our side, we see that from after several months, the engagement from the hacker community with your organization or your program will be reduced, because sometimes the organizations uh, become better at their software, like they fix the vulnerabilities, but that doesn't mean your software becomes really secure, because the complete security is a myth, and you have to improve your software each and every day, and you have to update your packages, your libraries. If you uh, forget to update some kind of a library or a package, it can become stale, and it can lead to some vulnerabilities in your code. So you have to completely be up to date with the current technology. So you have to have some kind of a constant engagement with the hackers to have same reports over and over again for new updates. Once you roll out new updates are pushed into the production servers, the hackers will receive it, and hackers will test again for new vulnerabilities. So we need to keep this bug bounty cycle alive until the end of time, if I say. So we have to keep receiving reports. So I will be discussing how we can keep receiving reports. So let me move on to the demonstration. So we can say the bug bounty cycle has some kind of what we are going to do with our bug zero platform is we are connecting hackers, and we have organization user. Bug zero is just the intermediary. So when we are connecting these hackers and organization, I think we can, from this bug zero point of view and hackers point of view and organization point of view, I will be able to give some kind of a demonstration by covering the bug bounty cycle. This bug bounty cycle is not unique to bug zero. It is industry accepted steps. So in any step, what we are going to do in a bug bounty platform, that we are going to create a bug bounty program, and there will be hackers who are joining as hackers in any bug bounty program. So the hackers part is we have covered in the previous session of this week. So today I will be focusing directly on how an organization can set up their own program in bug zero to help themselves to get more security testing using the hackers knowledge. So the first part is you set up the program, then hackers will see your program, they will see your assets, and they will test on your assets to see if there is any vulnerabilities from your side. Once they test the for vulnerabilities, they will submit a report. So that starts the bug bounty cycle. So the first step is you will receive reports. So once you receive the reports, it's very vital to handle the reports properly. So you will be receiving hundreds of reports per day, per week. So even if you don't have the resource to fix each and every report, it is vital that you acknowledge each and every report, so that the hacker is encouraged to do the same thing in the next week and then week next. So you basically do is you say thank you for the report, and then you will say that you will validate the report. That is the next step in the bug bounty cycle. You validate the report. So if you in the validation step, what you are basically going to do is you are going to check if the reporter mentioned vulnerability is in your system. So you can forward this report to your software developers and your security testers team, and they can reproduce the steps mentioned in the vulnerability report to see if the mentioned vulnerability is real or not. So if the vulnerability report is real, you can reproduce it from your own side. Then you can see that this vulnerability is how critical or not. And I will show you how a vulnerability report is structured. So basically, the hacker is mentioning us how critical this vulnerability is. But from your own experience, from your own organization perspective, you know how critical it is. So you can decide which report is going to be fixed first. So which report is taken into consideration first. As I mentioned earlier, you will receive hundreds of reports, but you have very few people to fix these vulnerabilities from a development side. So you need to prioritize these reports. In this step, we are calling it as triaging. So the next step in the bug bounty cycle is triage. So in this step, what the organization user is doing is that they are mentioning in the report, thank you for the report, we have validated the report, and now we are going to triage this report and we will get back to you once the fix is done. So hacker will acknowledge it, that they will know that the report is now being triaged, so the report is validated. Now hackers know that their effort is not in vain, and the hacker will encourage to do more testing on other assets as well. So when we are in this triaging step, it can take weeks, days, or months. That won't be a problem for hacker because they know that you are triaging. But since the only way to communicate each other through our platform, you have to make some kind of constant engagement with the hacker. So from the organization perspective, you have to give some kind of an update to the hacker that we are doing some kind of testing. Currently, we are doing some kind of redeveloping the fix, and we are going to deploy it to our staging environment or something like that. And we are going to publish this fix to the production environments. So when you are publishing the final fix to the production environment, then only the hacker can see from their side. So once you fix the vulnerability, and from your side you are satisfied, your internal security testers and your QA testers are satisfied with your fix, then you move on to the next step in the bug bounty cycle. The next step is asking for retest. We call it the retesting step. So basically in this step, you're asking the hacker to retest from their side. So now the fix is in the public, so it is promoted to the production servers. Now the hackers will retest from their side and try to follow the POC that they have already created. So they are going to reproduce the steps and they will check if the fix is completely acceptable from the hacker's point of view. So once the retesting is completed, hacker will say, yes, the vulnerability is fixed from our side. So now let's close this report. So then we will close the report from the organization user. Once we close the report, now one of the crucial elements of bug bounty cycle. Now we need to thank the hacker in a proper way. So that's where this term called bug bounty comes, because the hacker is not going to exploit the vulnerability they found. They will not publish this vulnerability in somewhere else for any monetary gain. They will do this in only for obtaining some kind of a reward for their effort. So we will award them a bug bounty. For right now, on behalf of your organization, Bug Zero will award a bug bounty for their efforts. So you don't have to worry about the reward at the moment. So currently, we have awarded around 1.5 million rupees for hackers all over the world for their efforts to appreciate their efforts. So the next step is reward. So in this step, I will show you how to do this. It's very simple, straightforward step. Then now it's all on the discretion of your organization. You can see if you want to publish this report, or you can just close the report and move on to another report. So in Bug Zero, we believe complete transparency, as well as most of the global organizations who identify vulnerabilities and fix them. They usually, after several months or several weeks period, they will publish this report for entire world to see, because most of the public organizations require that they acknowledge their vulnerabilities and their fixes. So you might, I think our next presenter will show you some kind of examples for like published reports. So in this report is public in the sense that anyone who can log into our Bug Zero platform, or anyone who join as a guest, they can see that there was some kind of a vulnerability in this platform in your organization, and this is the person who found it, and this is the amount of bug bounty that was awarded to for finding this vulnerability. And finally, they can read the description, like how the vulnerability was identified, the POC, if there was some kind of a screenshot or some kind of POC video, they can view it, the public can see it. So the basic idea behind making bug vulnerability report public is that to allow other novice hackers and security testing personnel or security enthusiasts to read how the real world applications of some kind of vulnerabilities are identified, and how they are fixed, and how much so for some bug bounty hunters, this will encourage them to do more to identify more vulnerabilities, and they will see how much was as the reward, how much was awarded as the reward. So they will be more encouraged, and also in that sense, the we are giving some kind of back to the community, like we are giving some kind of education as well when we are publishing a bug bounty report. So that's only on your discretion. If you do not want to publish some kind of report, you don't have to do it, but we encourage you to do it for your better. Like it will be good that you acknowledge there was some kind of vulnerability in your system. So finally, the step is publicly disclose the report. So once we do this, the entire bug bounty cycle is completed. So we can move on to a new report. So now we have covered the theoretical aspects of this bug bounty cycle. So I will be showing you how we are going to set up a bug bounty program, how we are going to attract hackers, and how we are going to receive a report, and the other steps in the bug bounty cycle. So for this, I will share the link to our platform in the chat. If you have some kind of a question, you can ask the questions in the chat. Now, if you go to our platform, you can click on the join with us. Then you can see that there are two kind of users you can join in our platform. You can join as a hacker. This is for your personal account. You can join as a hacker and play around how the platform is working. But if you want you can just move as the organization user. You can create a program. So in this session, I will be demonstrating how you can create a program and join our platform as organization user. So when you're clicking on the sign up button for the program, you can view this form. So in this form, we are asking for very few information. We need your organization name. For this example, I will be using this abc.com. So it's basically ABC Incorporated. So once you create the add the name, it will be final, because we are basically relying on the integrity of this platform and integrity of data. So remember to check before you are adding the name of the organization. So when you are creating the organization name, based on the organization name, we will creating a unique handle for your organization. So as you can see, ABC Incorporated will be turned into this handle ABC Incorporated. So this is unchangeable after you created a program. So if you think you want to change your name, like if you can change your organization name to something else, there is no problem. You can start a new program. We can archive this old program and redirect all the existing hackers into this new program. It can be done seamlessly with our platform. There is no issue with that. So now we need your own personal handle. So our basic rule of thumb is like, when you create some kind of program, we will create a handling account, which means we will rename it as support. So we can rename this uh, organization support handle as ABC support. So in that way, the hacker can identify who is communicating with them. It is ABC support. So from that handle on as well, the hacker can know that this the person who we are communicating is from the ABC organization. So then we need your website to verify that you have some kind of an asset. So then we need your email, your country, and your password. So when we are clicking create program, you are actually agree to our terms and conditions. The terms and conditions basically means that we want you to like acknowledge the hackers that you are giving some kind of permission to allow them to test your endpoints, which will be discussed in few moments. You will be allowing them to test for vulnerabilities, and you will be allowing hackers to report them in leave for a reward. So there will be a separate step of terms and conditions for hackers as well. I will briefly mention them. When a hacker creating their own account, they are agreed to our terms such that the vulnerabilities they found on any program is only meant for this bug zero platform only, that they should not disclose that vulnerability without the organization prior approval, such as the organization will decide if the vulnerability report will be publicly disclosed or not. If the organization doesn't want the vulnerability disclosed to the public, the hacker has to remain not talking about that. So that's the basic guideline. And the hacker knows that if the hacker is submitting some kind of vulnerability report to the platform, they will get some kind of a reward. There will be three kinds of rewards. The first one is monetary gain, like the bug bounty, and there will be swags. Some programs they will reward some kind of t-shirts or laptop stickers, and some programs give out like mugs, personalized mugs for the hackers. Finally, some organizations prefer to give this Hall of Fame. I will show you how the Hall of Fame works. So some hackers are more interested in Hall of Fame other than monetary gains or some kind of swag. So not in our platform, but in some other international platforms, some government entities, they are not giving some kind of monetary rewards to the hackers. They are just adding the Hall of Fame to the hacker. So the hacker can show that they have been accepted as Hall of Fame in this government's bug bounty platform. So they are more interested in having some kind of Hall of Fame. So once we create this program, when we click in the program, you will get some kind of a verification link. You can click on the verification link, then you can log in. For the time being, I will be signing in as our own Bug Zero's internal user. So you can see it's the Bug Zero support. Then I will show you how we can set up the program. So basically you can see that we need this logo as the profile picture. And as I mentioned earlier, the name and the handle will be unique and it cannot be changed after you created the program. So be mindful of that. So the website, you can mention your website and the country. And since we need to verify your organization from Bug Zero side to that this program is a real program, we need your LinkedIn, Twitter, or GitHub handles. These things are necessary to show that this is a real program, that we have some kind of substance behind this program. So in the intro, you can give some kind of introduction to your organization, what in your organization, what you are going to do. So once you complete this all this info, you can update here. Then you don't have to worry about user management or group management because they are meant for like advanced audience, advanced organizations. But for this moment, you don't have to worry about these settings. So once you complete the information tab, you can move on to the programs tab. This is where the most important aspect is mentioned. I will show you how a program is, how program policy can help the organization and the hackers as well. So basically, a program policy is the I can show you how a program policy is. So this is the home page for each and every bug bounty program. So policy is where you are saying what we want to do in this bug bounty program. So this is like your receptionist that who will be accepting any kind of hacker, who will talk to them directly and tell them what to do and what not to do. So in basically you can follow the same program policy. There is no problem. I will show you a different program policy as well. For this, I can show you the Helakuru's program policy. It's not that different from our own Bug Zero bug bounty program policy. So in here, we want you to add some kind of disclosure policy. And then we can show add some kind of exclusion. Exclusion means you are asking them to not to do these things, kind of things like DOS attacks, spamming, social engineering, physical attacks. Then you can add these out of scope findings. Since Bug Zero is already found this one types of vulnerability in our platform, and we have already fixed those vulnerabilities, we ask the hackers not to waste their time try to find in these kind of vulnerabilities. If your program also has this kind of vulnerabilities identified already and fix them, you can add them not to try to find these vulnerabilities for the hackers. Then finally, you can add the eligibility. Eligibility means that the report should be unique and the vulnerability should be identified in the program scope. Then the report should clearly define the POC, how to find the vulnerability from the organization perspective. And you should, the hacker should not disclose the vulnerability before before getting some kind of approval from the organization itself. Then finally, you can add the safe harbor. Safe harbor means while finding vulnerabilities in your own assets, the hackers might find vulnerabilities in your third-party libraries or some other packages. So that's covered by the safe harbor. So I will show you the policy of Helakuru, and you can see it's the same thing. It will in Helguru's program policy, they have mentioned that they have the Helguru Super Android app, Lite app, and the iOS app, and they are also mentioned not to do as the hackers. They ask not to do DOS attacks, spamming, phishing, and they have also added the criterion for identifying a proper vulnerability report and giving some kind of bounty to them. So this is what we are discussing as the policy, and this is the safe harbor. You can set full, partial, or none. So finally, you can set the scope. Scope is this. In scope, I think suppose in your organization you have several assets. Let's say you have 5 websites, 2 APIs. So you want all of these APIs, but some of the websites to be tested for vulnerabilities. So, for example, let's see the scope of Helaku. They want you to find vulnerabilities in their Android app, their iOS app, and another Android app. So they mention it in the in scope. In our own bug bounty program, we mentioned that the hackers should find vulnerabilities in only on our bugzero.io domain, because bugzero.io is our own is hosted on our own servers. It's owned by us, so there is no problem if a hacker is trying to find vulnerabilities in our system. But we add the out of scope here because the blog.bugzero.io is our blog. It is hosted on the Medium servers. We do not have the access or rights to do some kind of vulnerability hunting in their own servers. We just own the blog.bugzero.io domain only. So we ask the hackers not to do any kind of vulnerability testing in the blog.bugzero.io. So in that way, you directly announce your intention to the hacker, so that test only these programs and do not test these assets. So that's the idea behind in scope and out of scope. So I will discuss how we are going to add these steps. So when you are clicking on a target, you can see that there are several types of targets. So you can see there are domains, iOS app, Android app, Windows apps, source code, hardware IoT, or anything that's not listed in this. So you all know, like domain is a website. iOS app can be identified the unique identifier, Android apps, Windows apps as well. So when you have some kind of public source code hosted in GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket, you can add this in the source code tab. So I'll be showing, I think Pay here has this. Pay here has hosted their publicly or public source code, such as their Pay here LK's their source code as in scope that they have mentioned here, so that hacker can clone these repositories and they can check for vulnerabilities. So now you can add the identifier. You can select that if this vulnerability should be found on these assets or not. If you want the hackers to test for vulnerabilities, you should click on in scope, and if you don't want them to find for vulnerabilities, you can select out of scope. So then you can click for eligibility for bounty. If the asset is eligible for bounty, you can say that yes, so that the hacker will know definitely that if they find some kind of vulnerability, they will get a reward. So since we are handling the bounty and rewards for yourself, you just can set that as yes. So in threat level, let's basically see it as this. So in here, let's say you host your home page like a static page, simple HTML JavaScript page on one of your servers that's isolated. So if there is some kind of vulnerability identified in that static site, you can say that vulnerability is a low vulnerability because that won't be harmful to your system because it's isolated, and you can like give some kind of a lower threat level. But as a rule of thumb, accept we should not put away any kind of any types of vulnerability, because every vulnerability should be addressed in their own time, but the constraint is you have to have resources. So in that way we can categorize each assets in their own threat level, so that if there is a critical system, like let's say that your program, some kind of a, let's say some kind of WordPress system is on your server that houses another systems as well. If someone found a vulnerability on your WordPress site, that can has the complete control over the server. That, let's say, if the hacker has gained the complete access to your root server using the vulnerability, by exploiting a vulnerability in this WordPress server, that would be catastrophic for your organization and your users as well. So you have to say that this asset is critical. So you will treat this vulnerable, any report that comes to this asset as critical, and you will prioritize these reports as the topmost. So you can add instructions here in Markdown, but we basically recommend you to add the reference here. I will show you a good reference. So in pay here, they have at the type domain identify pay here.lk. So you can set the reference as the pay here support site. This is a knowledge base. So in that, if you are adding some kind of instruction here in the Markdown, it is limited. You cannot stylize it. You cannot add, like you cannot utilize all the facilities that can be used by other platforms. Like you can create your own knowledge base, what pay here has done, or just you can add a Google Drive link here or a blog post. We recommend any of that steps. So you can add some kind of knowledge to how the hacker can identify vulnerabilities, to help the hacker to find vulnerabilities. So if I'm a hacker and I visit the pay here's program page, I see this domain is here, I see this reference, I would go to this site and click on each and every these links, and I will read and I will understand how these APIs are working, and I will be testing for vulnerabilities immediately, because I don't have to ask any questions from others. I can read everything in this one place. So in that way, the hacker is more engaged and they will find vulnerabilities fast. So that's why we are recommending to add a reference here. So once you completed all these steps, you can add target here. So then you can add this submit report form. You don't have to change it because it just say how the vulnerable report should be structured. So in this way, the first thing we need from the hacker, that a generic overview of the vulnerability. What is it? How did you found it? Like a story, like hacker is telling how he or she has found the vulnerability as a story. Then a more structured way, we need to see the steps, like how the hacker has identified this vulnerability. So the hacker will add steps 1, 2, 3, and final step to find the vulnerability. And then finally, the hacker can attach references. They can attach screenshots, screen recordings, things like that in our own platform, or they can upload it to their own Google Drive or Mega or some kind of shared storage space, and they can securely add the link here. So then after the hacker is entering this description, we will need, from the organization perspective, we will need to add the impact. So without the impact from the hacker's point of view, if we are reading this report, we cannot get some kind of understanding. Of course, if you move just share this report with the developer teams or the security experts, they will definitely see, they can understand the impact from themselves. But since we also rely on the hackers uh, wisdom about this vulnerability, the hacker will show that what kind of threat or risk to the target and their perceived risk or threat level. And then finally, the hacker will add how does it will affect to the organization and to the users as well. So for example, if there is a process scripting vulnerability in your system, the hacker will say there is a process scripting vulnerability in your system and it will be threat to the platform, your organization asset, as well as the users as well. And they will mention that the threat or the risk level is critical. And finally, they will mention that it will be affect your organization in this way, like if the like malicious actor is exploiting this cross-site scripting vulnerability, they will exploit it in a way that they can steal someone's login details, access tokens, passwords, or it can lead to loss of data, and it will also affect badly to your organization, because once this kind of expert has done, it will be some kind of bad image to your organization and your reputation. So that's what will be discussed in these impact and description. Finally, you can activate these rewards. As I mentioned earlier, any bug bounty program will give this one of three of these rewards, either bug bounty, swag, or hall of fame. For this, since we are handling the bug bounty, you can activate it and set like 5 USD minimum, and then you can add activated for the swag. Swag means for this we are awarding t-shirts, and then you can add hall of fame. I will show you hall of fame here. So here you can see the hall of fame. You can see the hall of fame here. And finally, once this is done, you can set up the program policy here, and scope and reward, and finally the profile. You can submit for bug zero approval. Then we will approve it, and this will be public in this programs tab. So in that way, we can set up the program. So in that way, we can set up the program and listed here. The marketing will be done from our side, so you don't have to worry about that. So that concludes the organizational perspective and how we are going to set up a bug bounty program and how we are going to receive your program. So that concludes the demonstration on how to create a program. And our next presenter, Isuru, will show you how we are going to receive reports and how we are going to communicate with them and how we are going to make our program more interesting. So Isuru, now you can start, and if you have some kind of question, you can add them in the chat. I will answer them.
Hello everyone. So I will share a screen. So my name is Cicero, and I will today show you how to I will give you introduction to web vulnerabilities, and I will show you some of the known boundary reports, and also finally I will give you introduction to some hacking tools, especially Burp Suite. So yeah, so let's start with web vulnerabilities. So I think we know what like vulnerabilities. Like vulnerability is it's like a weak point. You can call it like a weak point, like an issue or bug that can be in any system. So here we talk about mostly web vulnerabilities. So first I'm going to show first vulnerability I'm going to show you called SSRF. It's called server-side request forgery. So in here, what server-side request forgery is a common bug vulnerability type. So in this vulnerability, what happens is, let's say our website have a feature where it take input or take a URL from the user, and in the server side they request to that they send a request to that that particular URL, and then get a response. Sometimes we need it for like some third-party file uploads, or some sort of login, sometimes even or oath sometimes could lead to this kind of issues. Sarif, sometimes like an image upload or load image from a different website. So at that time, I think when we send this kind of a link, we take a link from the user and we send that. So let's say in here, the attacker sending a request to the example.com, but in this get request, the URL parameter, the attacker sending google.com. It's a different domain, so he can just change it to his controlled domain, like an attacker domain or something like that. And then the the backend server will send this request to that particular server, and they get the response from it and then send it back to attack. So what is the impact? The impact is attacker can even then request an internal network. So let's say the organization have a like internal network inside of it. So I can easily, like an attacker can easily actually send enter like an internal IP address or internal domain name here, and then actually get the response to him back again. So this is can be lead to very critical issues, because some organization have have internal networks, and this not only for the internal networks, or if you like hosting on like an AWS or Google Cloud Platform, somewhere like that, then what happens is you can get credentials as well from those. So I'll show you some reports regarding those. So in this report, a security researcher, found SSRF bug in a Google Cloud project, and I will show you his blog post. So, the Google had like a domain that you can send requests. So like they had like an endpoint where users can test their product in their Google site. So what happens is Google send all the requests through the website through a proxy server. So when it goes through a proxy server, then Google does not. They had a filter like this is the request that is kind of going through. So they had a filter to check this is only allowed for coming from google.api.com, and so this only allowed from google.api.com, but this researcher was able to bypass this filter by using some special characters, and he was able to bypass it, and then he was able to access some Google internal projects, and for that he got uh, around 10,000, I think, boundary for this. So that's why this is crucial. So like I'll show you an activity as well. This this is HackerOne. So HackerOne have it's also a bug bounty platform. It's have something called activity, and it's contain all the published reports. And if I search for SSRF here, so you can see that here there's so many SSRF issues has been listed. So yeah, it's very common bug type. So yeah, then so to like protect against this type of attack, SSRF, the one way to do is also add a regular expression, a really good regular expression, just to check only coming from only that it's just only contain your known hosts. Also, yeah, you can add like a firewall rule or something like there is no outgoing connection like to like other unknown hosts. So you can add a firewall rule as well. And then there are protections. Again, these are many protections. Regular expression, if you use a good regular expression, you can actually prevent from SSRF attacks. So second, I will show you Um, Another vulnerability called blind XSS. This is a variant of a cross-site scripting. Can occur on applications as well. So this is also a cross-site scripting issue, but the problem is then this time the attacker, so normally when you like add a cross-site scripting bug, when you execute it, you get like alert box pop up, or any kind of you can attacker can see there's a cross-site scripting issue is here. But with the blind cross-site scripting, you can see this, so you don't get to like to check, okay, there's a blind XSS here. So how attacker then find it? So they use like something called like there's handlers, which means web handlers, where that the attackers first do is they go to websites, so they find like forms that let's say a feedback form or a contact us form as a really good example of this, and they insert this blind cross-site scripting payload into those forms, and it's not going to execute on the attacker side, but if there is no proper sanitization on the admin side, let's say the admin view all the feedbacks, all the contacts as requests coming through, then but we normally that the admin panel, the admin page is not visible to users. So sometimes we develop that page not with that proper like protection. So we might not validate it properly, the sanitization part. So what happens is then when the admin views that page, that cross-site scripting is going to execute it on his side. And because we entered a payload that actually going to send the data, so like let's say we getting the victim's cookie, then attacker can get that cookie and send it to his own server through an Axios request. So the attacker can send that data back to him. So this is same as the cross-site scripting, but blind access is hard to find for attackers, but is hard to find, but it's just if they use like a lot of payload, they can just put payloads everywhere, and then sometimes it get triggered. And then if it triggered, then on the attacker side, he can know, okay, one of the payload has been triggered, so he can get the admin token or cookie or any other informations about. So there are reports on blind access as well. So this is one report that is reported by a hacker on Zomato.com. So what he did was, I think he had a report review. So in the body of this report, he actually added a cross-site scripting payload, a blind cross-site scripting payload. So this is what it look like on a blind cross-site scripting payload, and then you add your own domain. So there are some like something called XSS Hunter that you can initialize domain where you can like capture all the requests coming through. So then the attacker can actually get away whatever the data he wants from the victim. So yeah, so for this one, I think he got 350 boundary for that. So there's another report regarding this same issue, that cross-site scripting leads to an account takeover. So the same thing here, he found an payload. He just inserted a payload into a form. So whenever actually this was found on the Department of Defense website or United States. So yeah, so whenever they get executed, also it doesn't have to be actually admin user, it can be any other users actually, maybe when we visit the website. So this is actually kind of like a stored process scripting issue, but uh, the attacker does not know the vulnerability is there. He just blindly guess, okay, there can be a vulnerability there. So yeah, and so yeah, so to fix blind accesses, what we need to do is we need to make sure that every endpoint, every part of the web application is properly sanitized, and especially that input that is showing back to us, like we taking input from user and we displaying them back, and then we need to like make sure that those parts are secure as well. So then I'll talk about another issue, something called mass assignment. This is also a very common issue that is happening in systems, web applications. So this issue is um, there is let's say a user. We can just add a new user. In this example, there's a new user and or default uh, the user is actually, so when you're creating one, it's normally allow username and password, but sometimes a malicious user can actually find another parameter on this model. So so we creating a user, when we create a user, it's only not only have, so we insert this into a database, and then we not only have a username and password, we might have other fields. So if it's a if this have like a field called admin role, then the user can actually add like so the malicious user can then find this parameter and insert it into this into the request, and then he will become an admin user. So this could lead list. It is a very critical issue as well. So I'll show you another report regarding this. So yeah, here you can see as well. Attacker was able to find a hidden parameter on this on one of the profile update page, and then he was able to actually change the email address into a different user's account. So this led to, I think, account takeover. So sometimes, so I'll show you for example. So sometimes we don't allow so let's say there's a endpoint for like changing name, profile info like a name, phone number, birthday or some, and then there's another endpoint to change email address. But on the when we changing email address, we might actually improve, add some protections, like we checking is this email actually already there, stuff like that. So but if but we don't check that the email parameter is getting validated on the on the on the name update or the profile information update side. So the web application can, so let's say you passing like name, birthday and phone number here, But if the web application also allows, let's say, email address, so then he can add actually an email address, and because there's no validation for email here, so then attacker can just put some email address of another user and then get an account takeover. So there are some protections against mass assignment in frameworks like Node.js, Laravel, or any other web frameworks, but sometimes they are not happen by default. You have to do some kind of a configuration for mass assignment. So let's say like we taking like let's say name and phone number and those data from user, and then we update that database, the model, without validating properly what field actually in the request. So when we do that, so the database model will update all on the field that we provide from there. So the attacker can then add some additional roles or additional fields to that, and then he can actually get at even account takeover. It could lead to account takeover issues. So I'll now talk on something called race condition. So a race condition is a bug occurs when a critical task is not properly synchronized. It's not properly synchronized. So there are some tasks in web application we want to synchronize them. So if we didn't properly synchronize them, let's say like from here, for this example, it's just like just simple money transfer to another account. So let's say I add a multi-threaded way of multi-thread into this and to like transfer money. So multiple users can just transfer money from one account to another. So let's say it's a public, let's say bank application, something, and then they can multiple users can transfer money from to another account. So what happens is, so this is the normal flow is we need to transfer 300 from A to B. We check the balance first. 300 is it is less greater than 5 less than 5, and then if it is, then we'll increment the account B's balance by 800, and then we will decrease that the transferred amount from A. So yeah, and then here I think so. If what happens is, if there's a race condition issue, then I run the same request simultaneously. So at the same time, I run this same request, and then the web application cannot properly synchronize it. This will execute the same time, and then the balance check will pass. Then it will increase the value account B value, so to 1100. So, and then the account A value will be minus. So these issues can be found on it's like social media, especially they can be found on social media stuff, because there's sometimes like systems where you add like a synchronize. It has to be a synchronized, because multiple the users can like at the same time. So we have to actually create like a multi-threaded way to allow that. So but if it doesn't properly configured, then what happens is could lead to a race condition and can get many likes. an attacker can get many likes to one of his posts. So I'll show you another report, I think, regarding the race condition. This one. So this one is for like redeem gift cards multiple times leads to free money. So an attacker was able to found the race condition on a redeeming endpoint on a website, and then he was able to get free money out of that by just executing the same request multiple times, and he gave the money that is same gift card has, but because it's execute the same time, the back end will increase the money that transferred into the attacker's account. So there's another good report actually found on Starbucks by a hacker. So he was able to actually order unlimited coffee. Yeah, so this is also occurred due to a race condition issue. So I think he discovered this actually by while he's ordering a coffee for $5, and then he monitored the request, and then he actually executed try to like do a race condition there, and then he was able to find one, and then I think he also included the bill here that actually cost. So you can see he was able to order many things just for free due to the rate condition issue. And he actually explained it here in details how he found it and stuff. So yeah, so this is, I think, also a gift card issue that leads to this issue. So you can find this kind of issue also in e-commerce websites, like adding cart to feature, stuff like that. So also, let's say that in when we try to buy things, we have a like a what do you call coupon codes. So if there is not properly implemented, then we can just enter one coupon code and actually get item for free entirely if there is any race condition there, and then we can get items for free uh, by uh, by sending that spoon code coupon code request multiple times. So to like prevent race condition issues, what we can do is when we synchronizing this, also to make sure that the critical actions we implement a synchronizing. So many programs support this. When we actually add threading applications, create a multi-threading application, we have features like to do them synchronized way. So like there's a sequence of order for every request. So if I want to transfer money from A to B, then it will first transfer, it will wait for first request to complete and then go for the next one. So it's not gonna ever going to uh, complete or just execute both of them at the same time. It's gonna only execute one and go to the next. So then I'll talk about something called a cache poisoning. So cache poisoning is another issue that occurs without our knowledge. So we don't even know there's a cache poison issue can be existed in our website because we don't really actually think about uh, cache poisoning type of issues because they are not not that common to find cache poisoning, because these days there's protections against it when you like use a firewall system or something, and then there are protections against cache poisoning, but there are cases that can find cache poisoning in real world applications. So what happens is an attacker go to a vulnerable website which for cache poisoning, and then he can then poison the cache with web cache with his own content, and then whenever the other users visit the same website, they will get these cached poisoned content from the cache server. So this cache poisoning could lead to many vulnerabilities. Show you a report regarding this. So this is a report that researcher has found more than 70 cache poisoning vulnerabilities. So you can see here some of the he listed here is denial of service. So you can actually create a denial of service. How you create denial of service is that let's say your website actually access for like resources, right? Let's say CSS, JavaScript files. So what an attacker can do is he can then attacker can actually like send a request like so the let's say CSS file, there's a CSS file. So what attacker can do with it for the CSS file, then he send a malicious request, a malforms request to the server that will give an error instead of the CSS file. So the some CDN, so he was found actually some CDN servers were vulnerable, where we store all the chase and all the like resource files we store in CDN servers. So if the like if he was able to create a malform request for these resources files, then what happen is then this error is getting cached on the web cache server. Then whenever another normal user came to the website, he will receive the error. So therefore, let's say there's a JavaScript. So let's say it's a React web application, and we know that to run the React, we need all the JavaScript files that requested. But instead of that, if the cache gives back an error response, then it will not give a JS file, which causes denial of service attack. So but there are multiple ways actually to cause a denial of service using cache poisoning. Also, another one could lead to is stored cross-site scripting. You can lead to using cache poisoning as well. So in here, he have actually described how all the whole process works on cache poisoning. This could even lead to account takeovers if we like if there is any issues for that, and then it can lead to even very critical issues as well. So to prevent cache poisoning is there are some actual theoretical things here, like cache busters, like keys like this. So how you execute it. So if you like read this and if you want to like you can search it on like cache poisoning on, then they can actually get this article. So this so to prevent it, what we can do is always like don't cache error pages. There are ways to like configure our cache servers to not to give error messages, not to store error messages in caches. If there's an error message, then it will say to revalidate the cache, so it will never going to cache the error message. Or if there is any critical endpoint that you in your application, then you need to say it's the cache to be private, so it's never getting cached on public scale, so the attacker cannot actually perform cache poison attacks. So another one is known as host header injection. This is also a common attack type. What happens is sometimes when we generate links on the application. So let's say we need to generate a password reset link. So we need to generate email verification link or invitation link for someone else to someone to organization. So at this time, if we rely on the host header, so in HTTP request, there's a host header where we just specify which domain is we accessing. So the reason for the host header is actually to, like, sometimes there is something called virtual hosting. So like in one web server we can actually host multiple sites. So how we know this is the site we accessing, that we actually have a host header, so that way we know which domain we actually accessing. So we just with just one server and then with multiple sites. So if we rely on host header for creating this sort of links, what happens is then attacker can just say, let's do a forget password page. He entered victim's email address. Then in the request, he changed the host header to let's say evil.com. Then when the password reset link is received on the victim's email address, if we click on the link, he will actually go to this website, and then it will also have this password reset token. So therefore the he can actually get an account takeover through that. So no, this could lead to many other issues, hosted injection. uh so um so in here I think also I will explain some of the other account takeover issues that is possible through this. So uh one is to one issue is to, like, sometimes when we, let's say, password reset, we have a parameter called email. So in some applications, there's a vulnerability called not vulnerability, it's like a feature, something, vulnerability, kind of vulnerability. So it's called parameter pollution. It is where that you can actually add the same parameter multiple times. Then the actual backend will recognize this as a uh, recognize this as a array. So it will send this password reset token to every single user, every single email that we mentioned in here. So we can actually add array here as well. So like email parameter, we add it as an arrays, and then the password reset token will go to all the emails in this list, and then this could lead to an account takeover as well. So another one called this username collision, where they say there's a, when we, let's say, password reset through username. So sometimes you can actually add unicodes or spaces in the request. Then it will ignore the space and it will send it to the to password reset. So you can actually create users with this. So let's say there's an email, there's an account that there's a user, the victim user create with his own email, and then what we can do is we can add the Unicode character, and then we can create with the same email. So if then the web application will validation part will see this as a different email address, and then it will add it to the web database. And if we log it, if we try to log back in to the victim's account, and I can get account takeover through that. So there are other issues as well in here. So another one we'll talk about is JWT. So JWT token, we use JWT tokens on web application a lot to authentication purposes. So if we didn't properly actually secure the JWT token, it could actually lead to many bugs as well. So one is where you can modify the content of the JWT token, and the signature of the JWT token is not properly validated. So I will show you. So yeah, here. So this is like a content of a JWT token, and sometimes the web application does not validate. So the signature here is just generated from this header and payload. So it just create like a hash value based on these two things here. Then the idea is to create a signature is to actually validate this data is never changed on the website when we sending them back. So if any of these data change, then it will match the signature. If it's invalid, then it will not going to process that request. So so the one issue with JWT is there's in the first segment here, there's something called algorithm, where you just put your algorithm, you can put it as none. Oh, there's yeah, so you can put it as none, and then you can remove the signature and send the request, and if the server approves it, then you can actually get account takeover issues. So yeah, that's one issue. And then you can sometimes modify the payload, and the backend will take that request as well without any issue, without validating properly the signature. So that is for JWT tokens. There are also some other ways to like bypass two-factor authentication. The one way to do is through response manipulation. Is let's say if your two-factor authentication is wrong, then the web server will respond as, let's say there's a parameter called success and it returns as false. But if it return to is true, sometimes we can then log into the web application dashboard. So we can, this is like a front-end bypass, but we can, using this, we can actually log into the let's say an admin panel, or even to another user's account. So another one is a two-factor code can be leaked on response. So sometimes when we request a two-factor authentication, in the response, sometimes it could leak. This not happen often, but there are some cases that happens. Two-factor code can be reflected into the response after we request the code. So if that happened, we can easily then bypass the two-factor code through that. Also, so we know like sometimes we add a rate limitation for two-factor codes. So let's say, for example, if we take Facebook, um, if you enable two-factor code, then you only have like, I don't remember properly, but I think it's 5 or 3 times. So if you enter more than that, then it will not gonna work. It will say to like try again later. This actually happens on many applications, but there are ways to bypass that as well. So if you send the OTP code as an array, sometimes web server accept it. If it accept it, then you can just create a large array and then you can send it. So let's say all the combination into, you put all the possible combination into a one single array and then you send it. And if the application approves it, and then it will go through the entire array. And if there is any match in the list, then it will allow to log in. So that's the one way to do it. So to avoid this sort of issues, we should always check the types of the critical uh, let's say critical parameters. For the critical parameters, we need to always check the types where we getting. So if it is only supposed to get a string value, let's say the OTP code should be a string value or a number, then we should check that it's only a number or a string. Any other type will be declined. So that's something need to keep that in mind in when he developing applications. So also I will show you another known one for outdated PHP version leads to an RCE, where there's a specific version for PHP for this, but if the server run this kind of PHP version, then attacker can just simply put a payload like this here, and then he can get a command execution on the server. So to prevent these sort of issues, we can always need to make sure that we update our versions, software versions, keep them updated regularly, and always keep in touch with the vulnerabilities. So let's say so there's a vulnerability called log4j in previously, I think 2021. So many system was affected. I'm pretty sure in most of the Sri Lankan websites, things was also affected, because if they're running Java on their websites, Java as the backend, then it's possible that most of them were vulnerable at the time, because due to issue in the log library on a login library on Java. So now it's been fixed, but there are some cases that it's still there. So it's good to actually put your program or your web application, allow a hacker to actually test them, because that way you can discover this sort of filters, even though you put like let's say a filter or latest version of it, but there are some cases that still leads to this sort of vulnerabilities. So this is the reports actually on the hacker one. They said that they received more than 300 reports when this vulnerability was discovered. So you can see how much how many programs were affected. So this was like the first days, then it's like the if I think it went through like a week or something, and like so many reports came around, and a lot of like big companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, all of them were vulnerable. So so many hackers reported to this program. Then also in this program, they specifically said to look for Log4j vulnerabilities as well. They were increased bounty payments as well for Log4j submissions. So yeah, so finally, I think I'll show you some things. So some of the program that is listed on other platforms. So you can see this is US Department of Defense one, and they actually have so far resolved 24,108 reports. And also this was actually added recently, I think, no, not that recently, but 2021 or something. But you can see they already found 24,000 bugs in here program. So you can see even these higher levels of these systems is vulnerable. These hackers has been able to find many vulnerabilities here, and they report it, and for that they got rewarded as well. So it's not just that. I think there are so many programs in here in HackerOne. Even Uber have a program here. So TikTok have a program here. Slack, GitLab, GitHub, so many programs. So Shopify. So it's not just all the big companies. Also, all some startup programs or startup companies or small level of companies as well listed their programs in the bug bounty, because it's better to actually pay a hacker some small amount of money than actually like to pay a higher amount of money after let's say a privacy leakage or data leakage happened. So you can pay some amount of money to an hacker to actually find these issues, and then get. So some of these issue here you can see, if you go to here, it could lead to millions of dollars to these companies. But you can see they paid like in their levels. I mean, this is actually a huge money for but let's say the privilege escalation to user to system. So this sort of issue is happened on like an actual hacker did this to this company, and this could cost them like millions of dollars. But that's why they pay this kind of a huge amount of to them. They already so once you like report a bug to these kind of companies, they actually internally calculating the impact, and that's based on that, that's how they pay actually the money here. So if you report like a bug to like Google or something, and they actually calculate the impact, then they decide how much money they should pay you for that. So I seen a recent bug there. A hacker was able to like Android phone. He was able to Android Pixel's phone. He was able to bypass low-key screen protection, so the bypass the pin. So for that, I think he got $70,000 for that. So he was able to bypass the pin on the Android phones without any issues, any kind of without any user interaction. He was able to bypass the Android low-key screen protection. So for that, actually, Google paid a really good amount of money for that, and they calculate the impact, and they know that if attacker was able to find this kind of bugs, this could lead them millions or billions of dollars. So that's why they pay that. To compare to that millions, I think 70,000 is a small number. So that's why they pay that amount of money. So So also I want to give you some tools on how to like how attackers like find some of the things on your web application, on your organization. So one of the way is to actually go through Google Docking. Google Doc is where you can just simply say like this. So for now, I just test like this. So here you just do a Google Doc. There are so many parameters you can put here, and then get all the publicly listed things in here, and then through that they can collect some credentials, even credentials or critical information through that as well. So to prevent from these sort of things, always like don't like publish anything critical to the internet. So to your servers. Don't like if you like a development, if you're uploading a development to production, then make sure that you also delete or or don't include your backup files and things into your production sites. Another good way is to keep in mind the GitHub. GitHub, I think, have more than millions, multi-millions of repositories on GitHub. So in here, so if you, when you like committing into your repos, when you keep committing a project to GitHub, make sure that you don't include any hard-coded credentials, because if you do, then hackers can easily find them through a GitHub search. There are so many tools for this, to kind of find this sort of issues. An attacker can like just by putting the organization name, they can find all the credentials. This, and if they want to like search for a specific repository, they can just put it and find it through local. Also, they can do it manually. So make sure that you never put any hard-coded credentials into GitHub, because GitHub is all. If you put it on public, private is fine, but on a public repos, don't put anything like that in there. So I'll show you, I think, if I so there was a report on Shopify where a hacker was able to found a GitHub access token on one of their engineers repo, inside of repo, and there was an application, and he took the application, and he actually was able to find an ENE file inside of it, and then he was able to get the GitHub access token, and he had actually complete access to their GitHub account, Shopify. So you can see how much critical this issue is. So if they, let's say a bad hacker or black hat hacker found this sort of issue, and then if he doesn't know about a bug bounty, if he didn't had a bug bounty program, and then if they actually sell it to a highest bidder, then they could actually earn millions. But there's a legal aspect as well. So since they had a bug bounty program, there's no legal issue, so he can report it, and they give them really good amount of money as well. Plus, they don't have any legal issues as well. So So that's one of the important thing of actually having a like a crowded testing. One of the advantages of crowd testing is to discover these sort of issues. So I think so if you have like any questions, you can ask now, I think. Okay, so now I will hand the session to Dr. Primal. He will discuss more about bug boundaries and the privacy issues. And so, Dr. Primal.
Thank you, Isru. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, so I think, I mean, the objective of today's session is to discuss how bug bounties can help startup ecosystem, especially people working on the ecosystem, not as startups, but as enablers, enabling other startups to grow. And then I think part of the reason why we wanted to sort of discuss this topic is we think when traditionally speaking, when we talk about startups, I think some of the main things that people talk about are, seed funding, equity, time to market, scalability, talent and skill, things like that, which is, I think, by all means are really important and then critical. But given how the landscape has changed recently, with the emerging threat of data breaches, and then especially I think one thing that sort of highlighted in recent talks as well, especially in US, is that the supply chain security, meaning that if you are a product, if you are a service provider to a bigger entity, bigger organization, they will treat startups or the any entity providing service as a supply chain. And then there's a very heightened discussion on how to secure the supply chain. I mean, traditionally speaking, supply chains are more on manufacturing domain, like sourcing materials, raw materials. So traditionally when we talk about supply chain, that's what we imagine. That's what we sort of that's what comes to our mind. But with the recent wave of attacks, I think supply chain security has been one of the most discussed and also sort of feared, because I mean, this was initially posited like, I think 3 decades ago, if not more, that one day there will be a time that you cannot trust software developed, written by someone else other than outside the organization. So but we sort of managed to neglect it so far, but with ever-changing landscape in security and geopolitics, it has now become a critical point. So things like that. So that's why we wanted to discuss, like, I think moving forward, adding security should be part of the discussion from the beginning, besides everything that I've mentioned about seed funding, equity, and all of these other things that usually startups are talking about. And then I think another critical reason why we want to talk about bug bounty with in the context of a local economy. It could be Sri Lankan economy, it could be any regional economy, or it could be, I mean, what's the impact of bug bounties for any economy that they host? So let me talk about the supply chain part of the story. I think there were a lot of cases. I think I briefly talked about supply chain security yesterday as well, but we thought we'll sort of elaborate more on it today, so that we can spread out the message. People can they can be aware of it. They can actually um, uh, uh, work on it before it's too late. So let me very briefly explain what is supply chain security. So for an example, SolarWinds attack is probably the most high profile supply chain attack that ever occurred. SolarWinds is a network management tool that's been used across organizations. Organizations like Microsoft, organizations like US State Department, Department of Homeland Security. It's a global tool, used by Fortune 500 companies, across domains, across geographies. And then, it's a pretty broadly used tool. So what they did is they actually, you can imagine if someone wants to sort of breach thousands of high profile organizations with a minimum cost. I talked about economics and security yesterday, and then this is a very specific use case for economics and security, is that I will mention that again for viewers that who missed this event yesterday. But everything is online again. You can watch all of our sessions on YouTube live stream. You can watch it in the future as well. So economics and security, one of the cornerstones of investing is ROI, return on investment. The idea behind is that you invest on something expecting something bigger in return. So what you are getting as return for your investment, if it is lesser than what you invested, then you have failed, and then the investment is it's not good. So everything, whatever you do, you try to sort of increase the probability of getting something bigger than you invested. The same goes to security as well, but in a different context. So these with the emergence of really big, vibrant underground market for security, it's a multi-billion-dollar market. I think it has probably increased by 300-400% in the pandemic. These people are really smart. These people are very skillful, and then with the maturity that they got, they actually very carefully choose targets. And I mean, I mentioned there are a lot of reasons why they would choose a target. Send a message like activism, someone would target a organization if they are doing something that a hacker wouldn't approve or believe. It could be politics, it could be green market. There could be a lot of reasons, but for the most of the underground market, what they are doing is for financial reasons. So that comes then the economics part of that equation becomes more prominent, because if an organization or set of hackers, of a group, or underground group, want to sort of breach an organization for financial reasons, they want to reduce the effort that they're going to put on, as much as possible, and gain as much as possible. So gain in the sense, like, sell the stuff that they've actually breached on the underground market, and then they can make profit. So in doing so, I mean, there are a lot of ways that they can minimize the effort. Like, they would if they can buy off a 0-day vulnerability in the black market, and then just hack a company, they would do that. If not, they'll spend time and then breach the company. But I mean, if they are to spend like 3 months and then hack a company and then to sell off for a really small amount, they wouldn't go for it because it doesn't make sense. So this is where supply chain security becomes even more important. In a supply chain, imagine the organization that hacked SolarWind. I mean, it's purported to be a nation-state actor. If they are to hack all the individual organizations that were using SolarWind, they never would have done that within a very short period of time. It would have taken years. And then, with the longer you take for that hacking campaign, the chances are really high that you get caught and then, someone intercepted. So it wouldn't be as successful. But with the supply chain, what you do is that you actually, figure out who are the people that supplies really critical components to large organizations. So what they do is, instead of hacking 500 companies, they only need to sort of focus on one company, but the gain is ridiculously high, because now if you are successful, like they were with the SolarWind, they eventually ended up breaching. They only hacked one organization, the one development environment, but that development environment, that backdoor, enable them to hack 500 really big critical organizations. Not even I don't know what the actual number is, but it's a lot. So this is why supply chain security scares a lot of security researchers, a lot of people in managing critical infrastructure, a lot of nation states, because if they get a taste of this, they will keep on going after software suppliers. They will keep on going after people who is supplying critical component. They will go after hackers. They anyway go after the weakest link. So the weakest link always have been human. That's why they do spear phishing. That's why they send a lot of spam with malicious link, because it's easy. Rather than hacking a network which is well guarded, they just want to sort of break one person and get into the system. And then I mean, that's how the DNC hacked went from Russia, 2016. That's how the Uber got hacked a couple of months ago. The list goes on. But now they have a different flavor, and then they are getting pretty good at it. Now imagine if someone wants to hack into Microsoft. And then, I'd imagine that they have a pretty strong security team. They do have a pretty strong security team. They have a pretty good sort of like, internal teams, network monitoring and all of it. So if someone wants to hack into Microsoft, rather than trying to completely going after Microsoft, what they would do is they would try to figure out what are the component that Microsoft is using that's supplied by someone else who has a lesser security posture, who has lesser resources to guard their software, who has lesser resources and funding to be more secure than Microsoft. So they will gain the same thing, but now they can minimize the effort significantly by going after a third party that supplies software to Microsoft. So why this is important for us? Because in Sri Lanka or in this region, most of our significant IT industry is catering a bigger organization. We have a lot of products that's being used in US, Europe. We have a lot of service companies that develop software for more critical, more sensitive clients in US and Europe, in other parts of the region. So now, rather than they go after bigger organizations in US, in Europe, they could pretty easily breach a local organization, a local company that ships product to US or Europe or other part of the industry. So they would get the same thing. So breaching a local product will still get them the same sort of access when the breached product is deployed in a really sensitive environment. So this is why I mentioned a security is no longer should be an afterthought. It never should have been an afterthought, but now we were more critical that it should be on the table from the day one. It should be on the table when they design a system. It should be on the table when they actually decide on the deployment architectures, development architectures. And then it should be on the table when they figure out how they should do the quality testing, how should they assess the functionality, they should assess the security. So it's no longer, this is coming even more critical for a regional ecosystem, because as I said, most of our regional ecosystem based on catering, supplying services and products to bigger clients in other parts of the world. So this gets even more interesting, because last year, with the SolarWinds hack and then numerous other hacks that happened within the last couple of years, there was an executive order from White House that said each supplier, each vendor that supplies software or services, they should have their own vulnerability disclosure programs, mean a bug bounty program. Either they should have their own or they should join something else. So this is interesting, because now, I mean, you can actually search for this executive order improving nation cybersecurity, and then under section 4 is dedicated on enhancing software supply chain security, and under subsection E, subsection F, and then the 8th point is participating in a vulnerability disclosure program that includes a reporting and disclosure process. So this is bug bounty. This is asking help from public to secure their products, their environment, their dev environment, and things like that. So you can imagine the thought process, the number of man hours, the number of the skill, the brain that goes into drafting an executive order, especially of this significant. And then you can imagine the discussions that they've gone through, like why they should include disclosure programs as part of it. So this highlights, this has two ramifications for us. The first one is this highlights the importance of bug bounty programs, vulnerability disclosure programs. This highlights officially, this is probably the first time that officially at a national level, at a more sort of a regulatory level, a government recognizes the importance of having a bug bounty programs, the contribution of a bug bounty program. So this is really important. And then second, which is even more important for us as a Sri Lankan or a regional ecosystem, is that this is going to impact us. They will start looking for our security postures. They will start looking for, hey, do you have a bug bounty program? What's the status of it? They will start asking those questions. And then it will come to a point that they are going to be making decisions based on the answers to those questions. So we are not too late right now, but we have to start moving. We have to start working on it so that when they ask questions, you can be ready and tell, yeah, we have a bug bounty program, we have a vulnerability disclosure program. This is how many bugs that we have fixed. This is how we interact with bug hunters. So this is even more. This is the reason why we want to sort of like bring this out and then explain why you need this. So I think I've made a good case why security should be part of any discussion on a startup. Sorry, with the same level of urgency of like shipping a feature, shipping a product, getting funding, managing equity. You should think about the bug, the security as well. So how is it even more important to have a vibrant security ecosystem? I think most of our regional economies relies heavily on exports for foreign exchange. With the and then we are already doing a pretty good job in terms of exporting IT products, software services, software products, but it's nowhere close to what we should be. I know there is a discussion going on whether we've actually achieved what we wanted to achieve. I think we are still like 5% of what we should be. So moving forward, it's really important that the security is a cornerstone of any local IT ecosystem, because that's one of the things that others will look into it. Others will sort of filter based on it. And then given the importance, given the significance of security in the future, this will create a even bigger export channel. So having a vibrant local security ecosystem will help local companies to be secure, and then not rely on foreign products, not rely on foreign scale. That will save forex for any regional ecosystem. And then doing so, we will have a pretty niche security export channel as well. There are a lot of things. Traditionally speaking, I think 2-3 decades ago, before these service industries came into play, the conventional, plantation or manufacturing export markets are dominant, and then get into those markets takes a lot of capital upfront cost, but not with security. We have the talent, we have a lot of skilled talent people, we have a pretty good supply of graduates, or even just high schoolers. So you don't need a big capital up to invest upfront to create a vibrant security ecosystem. It takes a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of money, but it might take a little bit of time, but it's pretty easy to get there. You just have to start it. I think with Bug Zero, we've sort of like, we've been doing workshops across Sri Lanka for some time, across universities for some time. I think rather than promoting Bug Zero as a platform, what we are what we are trying to promote is what we are trying to promote is the importance of security, the importance of bug hunting. So that will save a lot of forex. That will create a vibrant local ecosystem, and then eventually it'll create an export market as well. Look at Israel. I know it's probably not a orange to orange comparison, but um, regardless of how small they are, regardless of the geographical issues and all of it that they are facing, they have a really vibrant security ecosystem. I think they have the most number of security startups in the world, if not one of the most. So we can do the same thing. I mean, we don't have to copy anyone. We don't have to do it just because someone else did it. But there is a need. There is a special need that we need to do this in Sri Lanka. I think it's high time that we start security. We start treating security as one of the cornerstones, one of the critical factors that we should be thinking about. Um, and I think lastly, I think most of our regional economies have a problem of brain drain. So a lot of people are moving because of various reasons. I think security, a strong security ecosystem will give them a challenge, more challenge. I think some people leave because of the economic issues, because of the living standards, but I think there is a significant portion leaves because lack of challenges that they face. They don't feel challenged. These are really skilled people, so they want something to be challenged at, so that they can work on it. They can feel accomplished. They can get higher visibility. They feel exposed. So I think we do with the local IT ecosystem. I think we are doing it to some certain extent. Let's add security to that equation. Let's add another stream, another channel that people can showcase their skill. They can feel challenged. They can feel exposed. They can feel they have high visibility. They can feel accomplished through helping other organizations, local or international. So this is bug bounty can achieve all of it. So that's why we believe that we need a good, a solid ecosystem to help these issues. So and talking about enablers, talking about other organizations that work in this area, I think there are a lot. I know there are a lot of companies that sort of help startups. So that's a good channel that they all can sort of push the message to their cohorts, the people participating in their programs. Push the importance of security. Why security can be a good selling point, why security is going to be mandatory in the future, why security could be a good export factor as well. So and then I think I urge, there are a lot of people who help doing a great job in helping startups. I urge them, like discuss about security, talk about security, like talk about security as much as you talk about features. So bug zero can help you. I mean, we are not going to charge anything, but we can help you figure out what does security mean for you, how you can get the security assessed through bug zero for free, things like that. And then so there is also uh, a niche area of education and startup, like helping people to learn about security, like educating them on entrepreneurship, which is really great. I really admire that. So this is another area where security can come in, like tell them how they can, show them how they can learn security, tell them what are the opportunities they have in security. And entrepreneurship, I mean, this is again, bug zero can help them. We can they can join bug zero and start make earning while they do working in their own startups, and helping other people as well. So so there are a lot of opportunities. around the startup ecosystem and for enablers that to promote this. Yeah. So I think moving forward that we could all work together. And then I mean our main objective is to promote security as much as possible, as a viable startup ecosystem, as a viable opportunity to learn, as a self learner or anything that you can do a lot in security. So I think I mean I changed. So I think I pitched the idea why security, a local ecosystem, should need a security angle. I mean, this is. I know we have good set of participants today, but this is going to be on live. This is going to be on YouTube. Reach us. Talk to us. See how we can work together. See how we can build a good ecosystem, and then helping other organizations. I think that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take right now, and then discuss anything else. Does anyone have any questions? You can type it here. Or else, Nipuna, I think you can wind it up.
Yeah, I think we can wind up. Thank you for the participants and participants who are live streaming via YouTube right now. So for the Zoom participants, there will be a feedback form after you leave this session. Please fill the form so we can contact you. Remember to leave your contact details, your email in the feedback form so that we can give out some kind of a swag for you appreciating this participation with our session. So I think that would be the end of today's session. We have another session tomorrow as well. You can register with your form. So hopefully let's meet all you tomorrow. Dr. Rumal, let's wind up this session, right?
Yeah, well, thanks again. Hopefully see you all tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.